Amara looked at Liwei, still shocked, and before she could say anything, Liwei dragged the man out of the car. His movements were sharp, deliberate, his fury silent but heavy in the cold night air. He looked at Amara, his expression unreadable, and asked her which hand the man had used to touch and molest her. Amara, still a bit stunned, asked Liwei what he planned to do. Liwei looked at her, his voice low but filled with fire, and told her that he was going to show him what happens to people who harass women, to people who dare touch his woman. Still keeping his eyes on her, he asked her again which hand the man had used to touch her. Amara, trembling slightly, raised her hand and pointed to the man's right hand. Liwei's gaze followed, his jaw tightening as his voice grew firm and commanding. He told Amara to look away and cover her ears. Amara's voice trembled as she asked if they couldn't just let the man go, but Liwei stepped closer to her, his tone steady yet laced with emotion, telling her that if he did, the man would continue doing the same thing to others. He told her that worse could have happened to her if he hadn't shown up, that the man could have done more than just touch her, and that people like him needed to be taught what fear felt like. He told her again to look away. Amara turned her head, her eyes squeezed shut, her hands covering her ears as she heard the sharp crack of fingers breaking through the night. The sound echoed against the stillness of the empty bridge. Liwei looked down at the man, his voice calm but cold as he told him that next time he should think before laying his hands on any woman. He grabbed the man's cell phone and wallet, threw them over the bridge, and looked back at him, his eyes dark under the dim moonlight. He wished him good luck finding his way back to the city, then turned and got into the car with Amara, driving off and leaving the man behind in the silence of the night. As they drove off, Amara kept her eyes on Liwei, the passing lights from the street reflecting against his sharp features. Liwei turned slightly to her and asked if he had scared her. Amara shook her head softly and told him that she was just worried. What if the man went to the police? Liwei's lips curved faintly as he told her that he wouldn't. He said the man knew what he had done was wrong, and going to the police would be like walking into a lion's den. Amara looked at him, her lips tugging into a small smile. Liwei noticed and glanced at her, asking what she was smiling about. Amara looked away, hiding her expression, and told him that she wouldn't say it. Liwei glanced back at her again, his voice low and teasing, telling her she'd better say it before he stopped the car and punished her with 1,000 kisses and love bites. Amara turned to him, her cheeks slightly flushed, and told him that she just thought he looked hot when he did all that to protect her. Liwei chuckled softly, his eyes briefly leaving the road to look at her. He told her that for her, he would definitely turn gangster if it meant protecting her from harm. Amara's cheeks warmed even more as she looked back at him, the sound of the engine humming quietly between them. She leaned her head slightly against the window, her eyes tracing the moving lights outside. She thought about the first time she had met him, that familiar feeling of safety that had surrounded her from the start, a feeling that had never faded since that day. With him, she always felt safe. With him, she was home, her peace, her place of safety. They finally arrived home, and by then, Amara had fallen asleep. Liwei stepped out of the car, walked around to her side, and gently carried her in his arms. The night was calm, the only sound the rhythm of his footsteps as he entered the house. He laid her gently on the bed, sitting beside her for a moment, just watching her. Her face was peaceful in her sleep, soft and quiet. He reached out, took her hand, and looked at her ring finger, his gaze lingering as though memorizing it. After a moment, he took out his cell phone and took a picture of her hand, his expression unreadable but tender. He made sure she was tucked in safely, brushed a few strands of hair from her face, and quietly walked out of the room, closing the door softly behind him as the night swallowed the silence once again. The following morning, Liwei sat in his office as his assistant walked in. Looking at him, the assistant told him that the interview draft had been sent and asked if he should go ahead and tell them to publish it. Liwei told him not yet, and that he would let them know when it should be published. The assistant nodded in agreement, then paused before leaving and told Liwei that the girl who had interviewed him was waiting outside and requesting a meeting. Liwei sighed and told him to dismiss her, and that if she resisted, he should let the security drag her out. The assistant nodded. Liwei, still keeping his eyes on him, told him that since the semester break was starting, he could head home early. The assistant smiled warmly, thanked him, and walked out. Liwei sat there for a moment, then grabbed his cell phone and looked at his screensaver, a photo of him and Amara. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. He thought about how things were finally moving in the right direction, how he had managed to end the fake dating contract between her and Kai, how he was about to take over East Gate Group, and how the next step would be finding the mastermind behind his family's death. He was determined to track down everyone involved and make sure justice was served. After that, he thought, he could finally live freely, finally be with her openly, put everything behind him, and move forward with his life. He laughed quietly at the thought. Before, he had never seen a reason to live after his mission was complete. He had once devised a plan to end his life once everything was done. But now, here he was, looking forward to a future, to building a life with her. A text came through on his cell phone, telling him that everything was ready. He grabbed his car keys and headed out. As he walked through the parking lot, a voice called out behind him. The girl from his past, who had been waiting outside, ran up to him. Her eyes were wet, her steps hurried. She stopped in front of him, almost in tears, and asked if he had been the one who told her company to transfer her overseas. Liwei looked at her calmly and told her that he had mentioned she should stay away from him. She stepped closer, desperation in her tone, telling him that she knew it was him and pleading that he tell them to change their minds. She said she didn't want to go somewhere so far away from her family, that she had just returned to China and couldn't leave again. Liwei smirked slightly and told her that perhaps it was a good opportunity for her. With that, he got into his car and drove off, leaving her standing there. As he accelerated, the faint sound of her voice faded behind him. He chuckled softly to himself, knowing he had indeed been the one behind her transfer. If that was the only way to get rid of her, then so be it. She had started causing trouble, and he had no choice but to remove her from the picture. Meanwhile, Momo and Amara sat together in Momo's room as Momo packed her bag for the semester break. Amara watched her and told her that at least she was getting a chance to get away for a while, adding that she hoped she would enjoy herself at the boot camp. Momo smiled at her, seeing the slight sadness in her expression, and told her not to worry, that she was sure Liwei would plan something fun for her, so she wouldn't get bored during the break. Amara said that even if he didn't, it would still be a good opportunity for her to study more and get ahead for the next semester. Momo rolled her eyes slightly and told her to have fun, that books weren't going anywhere, and that one day she would go crazy from studying too much. Amara laughed softly and hugged her, telling her that she was going to miss her. Momo told her it would only be a few weeks and that they'd see each other soon. Amara grinned and told her that she was manifesting a tall, handsome, rich boyfriend for her after the break, one who would treat her right and love her from the moon and back. Momo laughed and told her she would definitely receive that manifestation, saying she was tired of being single and always hearing about Amara's stories with Liwei or seeing couples all over campus. Amara held her hand and told her that soon it would be her turn and that she would find someone even better. Just then, Amara's cell phone beeped. She looked down. It was a text from Liwei, telling her that he had sent a car for her and that it was waiting outside. Amara looked at Momo and told her that she had to go. She hugged her one last time and told her to have fun at the boot camp before heading out. Amara sat in the back seat of the car as it drove through the streets, the city lights flickering across her face. She wondered where it was taking her. Liwei hadn't mentioned the destination. The car continued until it reached the airport, pulling into a private parking area. She stepped out and looked around. And there he was. Liwei stood waiting for her, dressed in his usual effortless style, his presence calm but commanding. He immediately walked over, his expression softening as he told her that he was glad she had made it. Amara looked around curiously before turning to him, asking where they were going. Liwei told her that his private jet that he had bought had just arrived, and that he wanted her to be the first to step into it with him, that he was taking her somewhere fun. Amara's eyes widened as she looked at the sleek private jet before them. She turned to him, asking if it wasn't too expensive, that she had read these jets could cost millions. Liwei laughed lightly and told her that if he could afford it, why not buy it? He said he just didn't want to fly on the same plane as everyone else. The last time that happened, someone had annoyed him. He said it as he looked at her, amusement flickering in his eyes. Amara, curious, asked what had happened and who had annoyed him. Liwei chuckled softly, realizing she didn't remember any of it. He reached for her hand, and together they walked up the steps into the private jet. Amara's eyes sparkled as she looked around, marveling at how beautiful it was inside. She took a seat beside him and buckled up. As the jet lifted off, Liwei couldn't help but look at her. His mind drifted to the first time they had met, in a plane exactly like this. She had been just as excited then as she was now. He smiled faintly at the memory. The same girl who had once annoyed him beyond measure was now the one who drove him insane in the best way. He met her on a plane, and now they were back on one. But this time, she was his woman. The private jet landed in Lijiang, about 3 hours away from Shanghai. Liwei glanced over at Amara, noticing that she had fallen asleep, her head gently resting against the window. He slowly walked over to her and touched her shoulder softly, waking her up. Her eyes fluttered open, and he told her that they had landed. He took her hand, and they both stepped out of the jet together. As soon as they did, Amara looked around, completely stunned. It was snowing. The scenery stretched endlessly around them, white mountains, snow-dusted trees, and a crisp chill in the air that painted the entire landscape in serenity. She gasped, excitement flooding her face, before she started jumping up and down, laughing as she tried to catch the falling snowflakes with her hands. Liwei stood there watching her silently, his eyes softening as he saw how genuinely happy she looked. Amara looked back at him, still smiling brightly, and asked what this place was. Liwei walked closer to her and told her that this was one of the few places in China where it snowed all year round, a place known for its breathtaking scenery. He reminded her that she once said she had never seen snow before, and that he had promised he would experience her first snow with her. He told her this was exactly what he wanted, to be by her side when she saw it for the first time. Amara's smile grew wider. She told him that he actually remembered, and Liwei told her that he always remembers everything she says, no matter how small. Taking her hand gently, he told her they should go and see where they would be staying. They both got into the car that came to fetch them and drove off together. When they arrived, Amara stepped out and looked around in awe. It was a private villa, quiet, elegant, and surrounded by snow-covered hills. She walked in, her eyes lighting up as she took in the view through the glass walls. She ran around, touching the furniture, exclaiming at how beautiful everything was, while Liwei stood by the door, watching her with quiet admiration. She looked so full of life, so unrestrained, like a burst of sunshine against the cold backdrop of winter. He was glad that he could make her that happy, glad that he could make her smile that way. He thought about the coming days, and how much was going to change, how much was waiting for him. But before all of that, he wanted her to have the best semester break, one that would make her heart light again. Amara ran back to him, still smiling, and told him that the place was beautiful and that she really loved it. Liwei looked down at her and told her he was glad she did. He said he picked this place because it had the best view, so that even when they were inside, they could still see the snow falling outside. Without saying another word, Amara jumped into his arms and hugged him tightly. He caught her effortlessly, holding her close. She told him that she really loved it and that she had always dreamed of seeing snow. But as she spoke, her voice broke. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and Liwei's smile faded into concern. He looked at her, brushing his thumb under her eyes, asking her why she was crying when she was supposed to be happy. Amara looked at him, her voice trembling as she told him that she wished her mother was here. She said her mother had always promised that when she grew up and became successful, she would take her to places like this, to see snow, to travel, to fly for the first time. But now she couldn't. Her voice cracked as she said it broke her heart that her mother wasn't here to share this moment with her. Her sobs grew heavier, and Liwei pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her. He looked into her eyes and told her that even though her mother wasn't physically there, he was sure she was watching from above. He said her mother must be proud to see her living out those dreams, smiling the way she was. He told her this was a moment her mother would have wanted her to enjoy, not cry through. Amara nodded through her tears, and he gently wiped them away before leaning down and kissing her forehead. He told her he wanted to show her something. Taking her hand again, he led her into another room. When Amara stepped inside, she stopped, her eyes widening. It was a walk-in closet filled with beautiful winter clothes, all neatly arranged and brand new. Liwei turned to her and told her that since they hadn't brought any winter clothes, he had arranged for a full wardrobe to be prepared in advance, and that she could choose anything she wanted to wear before they headed out. Amara smiled at him softly, asking how he even knew her size. Liwei smirked slightly, moving closer until their bodies were almost touching. He gazed into her eyes and told her that he knew her body like the back of his hand, that he knew every curve, every line, every part, and that it was all memorized in his mind. He told her that of course he knew her size. Amara blushed deeply and turned away, walking to the closet to pick what she wanted to wear, trying to hide her smile. A while later, the two of them stepped out wearing matching winter outfits. They made their way to a nearby helicopter ranch, Liwei holding her hand tightly as they boarded. The helicopter lifted off, the sound of the blades slicing through the cold air as the ground fell away beneath them. Amara's eyes sparkled as she looked out the window, marveling at the view. The snow-covered mountaintops, the shimmering white spread of the valley, and the falling snowflakes glinting like scattered stars. Liwei kept his gaze fixed on her, watching the way her eyes lit up, the way her breath fogged the glass as she leaned closer to see more. She turned to him, her smile radiant, and told him how beautiful it was. Liwei's eyes softened as he leaned in close and whispered that the most beautiful view was right there in front of him. Amara blushed again, looking back out the window to hide her face. The helicopter hovered lower, giving a clearer view of the ground below. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw it, massive letters carved into the snow, perfectly visible from above. "I love you, Amara, your man, Liwei." Her lips parted in shock as tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time, they weren't from sadness. They were from love, overwhelming and pure. Liwei looked at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips as the reflection of the snow and the words danced in her eyes. Amara read the words again, her eyes glistening and her cheeks flushing a deep shade of red. She turned to look at Liwei, her voice soft as she asked if he had made that. Liwei nodded, his expression calm yet filled with quiet pride. He leaned in, his gaze steady on her, and told her that he had arranged it himself. Moving even closer, his voice low, he told her that since he struggled to say those words out loud, he wanted to have them written down so she could see them, so she could know exactly how he felt about her. Amara's heart skipped a beat. Her lips curved into a trembling smile as she told him that this was his first, "I love you." She said that even though he hadn't said the words orally, the fact that he had them written across the snow in such a beautiful way meant more to her than he could ever imagine. She leaned forward and wrapped her arms around him, holding him tightly as he closed his arms around her, his chin resting gently against her hair. Liwei held her close, feeling her warmth against him as a rare peace settled over his heart. He thought about how many times he had seen sights like this before: the white snow, the mountains, the sky painted with soft light. But this time, everything felt different. It felt more beautiful, more meaningful, because he was seeing it with her. He leaned closer to her ear, his voice soft but firm, and asked her if she was happy. Amara looked up at him, her eyes still glimmering, and nodded. Liwei, his gaze locked on hers, smirked slightly as he asked her how she was going to thank him. Amara smiled, tilting her head slightly, and asked how he wanted her to thank him. Liwei's expression deepened. He reached out, his hand gently holding her chin, pulling her face closer to his so that her eyes couldn't escape his. The closeness between them made her heart race. His voice dropped lower as he told her that perhaps she could give him twins after this. Amara blushed immediately, her breath catching as she tried to look away, but his hand on her face made it impossible. Her voice came out soft and flustered as she told him that they hadn't even been doing what was necessary for her to give him twins. Liwei chuckled quietly, the sound low and teasing, before leaning in to whisper against her ear that she shouldn't worry, because after he marries her, they're going to spend 2 whole days in bed just making those twins. His breath brushed against her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. Seeing how shy she had become, he laughed lightly and released her, his arm wrapping around her shoulders as he told her that all he wanted was to make sure they had as much fun as possible on this short vacation. Away from the noise, away from the chaos, away from the constant threats that always seemed to follow them. After the helicopter ride, they took a long walk together through the snow. The air was cold but crisp, their footprints forming a trail behind them as Amara walked ahead, touching the snow with fascination written all over her face. Her excitement was contagious. She bent down, grabbed a chunk of snow, and threw it at him before laughing out loud. Liwei stood there, hands in his pockets, watching her with amusement. She laughed again and told him to stop being so serious and boring, that he should play with her. Before he could respond, she grabbed another handful of snow and threw it at him again. He raised a brow, teasing her that he was too cool for that kind of thing. But just as she turned around, laughing, he quickly bent down, scooped up a handful of snow, and threw it right back at her. Her shocked laughter filled the air as they chased each other across the snow, their laughter echoing through the cold mountain air. She tried to dodge him, but Liwei caught up to her, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they both tumbled down together into the snow, still laughing. The world seemed to slow around them, the snowflakes falling softly, the sound of their laughter mingling with the wind. Amara looked up at him as he hovered above her, his face calm but softer than she had ever seen it. She reached up, brushing her fingers against his cheek, and told him that he looked very handsome when he was smiling and happy. She told him she hoped she could always bring that kind of laughter and smile to his face easily. Liwei's eyes darkened slightly as he kept his gaze fixed on her. He told her that she was already doing that she was the light to his darkness, the calm to his chaos. He told her that with her, he felt like life had given him a second chance. He said that with her, the darkness inside him faded, that she quieted the storms within him. He told her that he knew she was brought into his life for a purpose, just as he was brought into hers, so they could heal each other and rediscover the meaning of life together after both having endured so much loss. Amara lay there, her eyes fixed on his, her heart swelling as she listened to every word he said. For a moment it felt as though time itself had stopped, the air between them heavy with emotion, the world outside distant. Before she could say anything in response, Liwei's phone began to ring. He looked down, his expression shifting almost immediately. He answered the call, his tone firm and controlled. It was Master Shen. His eyes sharpened as he listened, the warmth in them fading, his attention snapping back to the world he had momentarily forgotten, the one filled with power, danger, and unfinished business.